Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morgan, Rough Motor City Madmouth. Pleased to be joined by Eric Katz, Trent Clark, George Eichhorn, and in the chat room, Brian Pettit. Glad to have you in here, Brian. We have a busy show lined up, and I mean busy. We're going to talk about Albert Pujols. Eric will have a couple rants. I got a couple of FYIs regarding some very big, legendary Baseball Hall of Fame players, and the list goes on and on. With that said, Eric, welcome back.
Good to be back.
Good to have you. Trent, as always, my co-host. Glad to have you.
Everybody, hey, 108 Stitches. Glad to be here tonight talking baseball.
You got it. And George Eichhorn has been around forever. Great stuff. Man.
Happy Monday, everybody.
All right, let's get to it. Will Albert Pujols eventually manage the MLB? Well, look at it this way. Albert Pujols is really like to think that he's going to be able to do it in a couple of years. And keep in mind that he's going to be managing in the Dominican Republic in the WBC in 2026. So, Eric, some thoughts about Albert Pujols' managerial future.
I mean, typically when you got a great player like that, it holds name brand appeal for it will be a name brand appeal for your team. But whether he's good or not, that remains to be seen. But I do see it. I mean, given what he's accomplished in his career, the last 700 home run hitter, clean, I might add. He's he's going to be in the Hall of Fame the next couple of years. And yeah, a team will hire him just based on the fact that it will bring butts to the ballpark, and it also adds name brand to the organization. Now, his biggest challenge will be bucking the trend of great players not being great managers. Right. I mean, obviously Joe Torre, he won MVP, but other than that, he kind of had a Roger Maris-like career. It's going. The thing is, like, we've seen countless times where guys who were great players did not make good managers. For example, the problem is, with them, and I think Albert Pujols, if he can buck this, he might be good. Is can he have the patience for players who aren't as great as him? For example, this is a different sport, but when Magic Johnson coached the Lakers for a little bit, he had no patience for people who didn't see the court like him. But the question for Albert will be: will he be willing to work at it, and will he be willing to work with younger players? Understand that not everybody's going to be a Hall of Fame caliber player like Albert Pujols, and that's just going to be his biggest challenge. Obviously, depending on even although you can make the argument that Don Mattingly has been an okay manager. Specifically with the Dodgers, I can't really put the Marlins on too much because the Marlins are the Marlins because they just seem to ready, fire, aim every time they can. Don Mattingly at least has tried to work with those players. Has he had much success? Really, not really, but at the very least, he's trying to be a good one. It's going to depend on if Albert Pujols is willing to put in the work. I understand that, not everyone is going to be a 700 home run hitter like Albert.
Well, let me point out one thing before I turn over to Trent. Tommy Hutton, good friend of mine, colleague, says you can't play for Don Mattingly, you can't play for anybody. So I've been working with Tommy for a while, and I'll take anything that Tommy has to say. And believe me, this guy knows his baseball. All right, turn over to you, Trent. What do you think about Albert?
Well, I think this is the journey, right? Motor City. I mean, you start out, you get managing, you start out in the winter leagues, and that's a great place. He's a revered, known commodity. The young kids saw him playing growing up. Mm-hmm. So he creates instant respect. Now, can he maintain that based on his personality and demeanor as a coach, as a manager, as someone who's going to manage the relationships? There's a lot of relationship management, and when you're a player, you just manage your own relationships, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got 5 to 10 key relationships. Now you've got probably well over 150 relationships to manage. You've got all these things with not only your clubhouse of 25 guys and how they interact, plus your staff of 8, how they interact with each individual, plus media now, plus front office. relationship management is all about what managers have to do, in addition to think and know the game and be able to teach that to others. So it's a really challenging role that's not meant for everybody. But Albert wants to take a shot and go find out and recognize there's only 30 jobs like it in the entire world, right? In Major League Baseball. So it's rare air for you to be a manager. And unfortunately, you have a couple bad years, you take the wrong spot, and you just find yourself in managerial Siberia because you were cast away from a small market team. No one ever saw you work, and
True.
never get another shot. So because he's got a good name, I think it's going to create a couple of real nice opportunities for him. But it's time for him to find out if he can actually do that job.
Yeah, I'd like to see if he can. I will, but I think really his only way he gets there is like what a lot of managers do. You start out in the minor leagues and build that, and then work your way to the big leagues. I don't think it's going to happen in 2 or 3 years. Very few people can go out there and get it done that quick. All right, Eric, real quick before I turn over to George.
Well, I don't think you really have to start in the minors anymore. We're seeing now more and more guys, step right off from wherever and become a manager. Stephen Vogt did this like right after he retired. He became the manager of the Cleveland Guardians, and to me a damn good manager as he's proved. But especially for a small market team like Cleveland. But I don't see Albert spending much time in the minors. I see him maybe doing the DR circuit for a bit because he's from there. But I don't see him doing the minors. I see him stepping right off the DR circuit right into the clubhouse. That's just the way the league has kind of become these days, whether we agree with it or not.
Well, listen, Eric, even if he went 1 or 2 years in the minor leagues, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for him.
Absolutely.
But yes,
no.
But the DR, I totally get that. All right, turn it over to George. We have a lot of ground to cover tonight, including 2 of Eric's rants. I can only imagine what they're going to be like. Thankfully, the beginning, one at the beginning, one at the end. Okay, George, thoughts about Albert?
Well, the key is going to be patience, because he had such great career numbers that his patience with struggling hitters or struggling players is going to be key to successful management. We've seen this happen before. We really have. I mean, the list is long.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to Ted Williams and taking over the Washington Senators and the Texas Rangers. We know how that came out. There's a fellow named Alan Trammell who tried his luck and didn't go anywhere with Detroit.
Not his fault.
But
San Diego too.
Yeah. But the thing is that a guy like Albert Pujols is such a superstar name and such a great, great career that, yes, he will be given every opportunity if this is the path that he wants to pursue. And you're right, the Dominican Republic, that's a nice start for him. A lot of guys obviously speak Spanish, and he'll be able to relate to the players good. And I just have so much admiration for him as a ball player. I think that if this is where he wants to go, it could be laid out for him rather nicely, and I wish him nothing but the best.
Okay, Eric, rant number 1. You talked about how Steinbrenner's alteration of the Yankees facial hair policy. What are your thoughts on it? And if we feel the need to incorporate, we will. But Eric, you brought it up. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Well, I think it's a good thing. I think that it's been there for years. This goes back to the time where women couldn't even have checking accounts at that point in time. They were, I think it's needed. It's nice to kind of break from that tradition a little bit. And I really think too that and I've talked to a guy named Ray Negron who was, nobody aside from his own kids, nobody was really closer to the boss than him. I think George would have done away with it too. I mean, we could say what George would have done, wouldn't have done. We'll never know because he's not here anymore. But I think George would have done away with it. I think it was time. The Yankees kept it going for so many years, and I think it's a fair compromise to not look like Duck Dynasty, but at the same time be yourself. But yeah, I think it's good. I think it's going to be good for the organization overall.
Anybody else have some thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's awful. It's a joke. I think it's what separated the Yankees from everybody else is that they set a standard and they never went below that standard. And now they've we should be like everybody else. That's never been what the Yankees have been. So I think it's the dumbest thing. I think Hal's jacking it up. I don't think George ever would have left that. I think George likes the fact that he holds his team in a higher standard than everybody else does, even if this is just a small thing. And he pays handsomely for it to be a part of the most elite, I mean, probably the most elite and well-known sporting franchise in the world. And that's arguable with a couple, football franchises around the world and everything else. But when you think of U.S. iconic sports teams, I think the Yankees, and because it's been America's pastime for so long, and maybe that's changing, but the league has what? Over 100 World Series. I mean, the other leagues don't have that history. This is a institution, and I think it's a horrible, horrible error on their part.
George?
I have no problem with it. I understand both viewpoints. I have both viewpoints. I understand what you're saying, but the players of today, don't want to do something. It's just something that you can't just have one team do. I don't believe so. I think that to attract yourself to all these other potential players and pitchers and catchers and everybody else, and some people may say it's giving up or throwing tradition out. Yeah, I guess it is in a way, but I don't blame the Yankees for changing the policy.
So I could go either way, and I'll leave it at that. Breaking news today: Garrett Cole having Tommy John surgeries out for the 2025 season due to UCL tear. You know what, Trent? We're going to lead off with you on this one. Being in the clubhouse, a guy that's relatively familiar with these Tommy John surgeries. Some thoughts on how big of a blow will it be for the Yankees?
Well, I mean, get out your Lloyds of London on that insurance policy, right? Because I think, I don't know what his payment was this year, but, at whatever, $14,000 per pitch, and he's going to throw 0 of those for the next probably 16 months. It's horrific. It's part of the game. And, pre-air, we were talking about this in the back room, and the reality is that a lot of people thought it was coming last year. He was put down a couple times because of the elbow issue and soreness. So it comes at a time that, you just can't invest enough in these guys' prevention program at the numbers that it now is. I mean, it's really not about prevention. It's about insurance. And I guess they'll take advantage of Lloyd's or whoever underwrote his contract. But, it's disappointing, and obviously, he is one of the best pitchers in the game. So, I mean, what a dent in the Yankees lineup. I mean, that certainly hurts their rotation. So, it's gonna be a tough year without him. And so, man, just my early start on the Yankees is not great for today, right? In my opinion, between those two things, I don't think I'm not bullish on the way the direction the Yankees are headed.
Well, they always say spring. Well, let's go to Brian Pettit. Has a comment on Albert Pujols, ready to manage an MLB team and is a great manager. He'd be for baseball. He's better off waiting his turn. Pujols deserves a great team that its own interest and expectations. Bullseye, Brian. That's all I'm going to say. That's what we've been talking about. Great minds think alike. George, some thoughts about Mr. Cole.
Oh, what a terrible break! Pardon the pun for the New York Yankees. Counting on him heavily, and obviously the predictors such as myself and all of you guys, when we were asked last week about our prediction, I had the Yankees going all the way. Is it possible? Yeah, but this really puts a big dent in it, like Trent said. I mean, he's an unbelievable talent. He has a lot to offer any team, especially a chance to win the pennant and get into the World Series again. We've been through it. I've seen it. Everybody has seen it. Some big names going down with Tommy John surgery and other injuries, but it's not the end of the world. You got a full season ahead. They got to try to find some more pitching help out there, the Yankees, and I'm sure they're working hard at it right now. But I do wish him the best of success in his surgery.
Best part about this business is I'm not paid to be a predictor or better. I'm paid to deliver the news, journalism 101, last broadcasting. So I'll give you guys a saying that you can really think about. BTJ and ATJ stands for? Anybody
No,
want to
go
take
ahead.
before Tommy John and after
Oh
Tommy.
yeah.
Come on. It's all about fun. And that'll transition to another fun topic. They don't Pawtucket doesn't get
Before we leave this, I mean, the competitiveness has changed drastically. When you lower him out of the rotation, now all of a sudden your number 2 is going against their number 1. Your number 3 is going against their number 2. This whole thing doesn't line up well, and it doesn't serve the Yankees well. I mean, it's going to have significant impact, and young kids aren't going to come in and give the innings that he gives. They're not going to have that kind of experience at that level to stay in longer, which puts more pressure on your bullpen, yada, yada, yada. The downstroke effect of all this is massive, and they'll feel it instantly. And by All-Star break, you'll start seeing the results of that downstroke, and the impact will be detrimental.
So anybody that made Yankee predictions last week, I have a feeling that, we'll be making the same one. All right, Eric, what do you got?
Okay, well, obviously losing Garrett Cole isn't ideal. However, shouldn't be a shock because the guy dodged Tommy John last year very narrowly, and for everybody who's acting all shocked at this, I think they're full of it. Because he had an elbow problem last year. We all thought last year would be the year where they stick the knife in the elbow and do whatever they do in there to make sure it's good as new, and he spends the next 12 to 18 months recovering. But here's the thing: it's not the end of the world for the Yankees as people are making it out to be, especially unfortunately with the noise that is social media nowadays, which some days I wish it never existed.
Don't hear about it.
However, Max Fried spent the past few years before he came to the Yankees as the Atlanta Braves ace. They're paying him $218 million. It's time for him to put his behind at the top of the rotation where he was in the National League and give him some innings. Carlos Rodon, we saw him have some success for the first time in his career using off-speed pitches. He got a lot of whiffs there. And then also, Will Warren. He's having a fantastic spring. I think he deserves a chance to be in the starting rotation. Yes, last year was kind of rough, but number one, I think the Yankees brought him up a little sooner than they should have. But but this spring he's been dynamite. And then Clark Schmidt, he's going to be staying behind in Tampa for a little bit while the Yankees go north. However, they have him slated April 3rd, so you're really not missing a lot of time there, and he'll be ready to go now. And so, as if he can build off the some of his success from last year, because he was on his way to a breakout year before he missed a significant amount of the season with an injury, which the injury escapes me. And also, don't forget, the Yankees improved their defense. That was a giant problem last year. And with Marcus Stroman, a pitch to contact kind of pitcher, and a guy who people forget, he can eat innings too. I know the Yankees don't want him to get to that innings threshold where his vesting option will trigger. I think that this year he can bounce back because keep in mind, in spite of the Yankees' poor defense, he started off the year very well and just fell off in the second half. So I think Marcus Stroman can easily find success again. Yeah, the Yankees, it's not ideal for the Yankees because they don't necessarily want him, but he can definitely make it happen. And don't forget, Brian Cashman I could see him adding a depth starter somewhere in there to kind of balance it out and kind of a spot starter, or the Yankees can use an opener and kind of use that strategy. But keep in mind, guys, starters no longer eat innings like they used to. No, gone are the days where you got guys eating 300 plus innings and saving your pen. Teams rely on bullpens. This is not new. For those of us who have been around this game, we should have seen this trend coming. And as far as bullpens being relied on, guys, every bullpen feels it toward the second half of the year because teams rely on it so much. Heck, more bullpen pitchers are getting Tommy John because they're being relied on so much because the body isn't used to it. For those who are in the kinesiology field watching the joints fall off. But the fact of the matter is, it's not the end of the world. The Yankees have. I think Marcus Stroman can bounce back. He's proven to be an innings eater, and it's not ideal. I still believe the Yankees are a playoff team, and they got the if everything goes right with their bullpen, I believe the Yankees, they won't. It's not ideal, but it's not the end of the world as people are making it out to be.
Great points all the way around. I should point out, and let's go to Brian's question. What was the spin on New York winning it all after the injury? I don't even know. Anybody want to take
it would be interesting. It would be interesting to see those odds, 3 days ago and now. That for sure. But I think Kathy's dead on. I mean, because of the elbow in the last year, a contingency plan in order probably was on everybody's mind and not so back burner. That might even been front burner. I mean, they're making a pretty early call on this guy on March 10th. So, maybe well planned for, and maybe they're going to be fine. That's a good point, Kathy.
The Yankees kind of did that with Max Fried, knowing that would have happened. So that it's kind of there. Obviously, they didn't bank on Luis Gil. Luis Gil getting hurt when he did. So, but they'll see him hopefully at some point in the middle of the season. So, but yeah, the Yankees kind of did that with Max Fried. Which to me, that's just my thinking with it, because otherwise I don't think they would have gone out and spent $218 million on another starting pitcher.
Yeah.
Well, just an FYI, many years ago, back from 1982 to 84, I covered the Fort Lauderdale Yankees. And the one thing about the Yankees is they always went out and spent money on their farm system. So,
absolutely.
Yes, this is a big loss, but the Yankees spend a lot of money developing players. Just an FYI to throw out there, that we're going to have Caddy come up with our first station break in the evening. Pawtucket, will demolish McCoy Stadium in Rhode Island for a new unified high school. Get that. So, Trent, you've been around this ball circuit for a while. Have you ever been over at that place?
I have never been to the Pawtucket ballpark, and it's a legendary AAA facility in the American League. Obviously, it's a storied history of Boston when they talk about their beloved Red Sox and sending them down to Pawtucket or bringing them up from Pawtucket, which of course is right there over in the Cape there. And what a beautiful place. And probably very few teams have a AAA ballpark that's 40 miles from the HQ. I mean, it's a real rarity, and they've maintained that relationship for so long for the Northeastern fans. So it's iconic. So probably a tough one to see for all the Northeasterners to see go. That's a little rough.
But they will be using that place for a new unified high school. So at least they're going to put the facility to good use. I know George and I can relate to this a little bit with Tiger Stadium being demolished in favor of what is the corner ballpark, I think it is.
Corner ballpark, yeah, for Police Athletic League youngsters play. Right.
Right. And then we ended up going there for the NFL draft when they were having an event there. It was pretty neat. First time we were both actually in the facility together anyways. It was pretty cool stuff. So, hey, you know what? Part of what we do is we hit the top topics, but I also like to come up with these off-the-wall ones too, to let people know that baseball is played at all levels and there's a lot of history beyond the big leagues. Eric, what do you think about Pawtucket? You know everything else. You want to go out there and throw a little 2 cents in before we go to our first station break?
Yeah, I never went there, but I've spent a lot of time in New England and know about it because I had family, because I still have family there. It was home to it actually was the site of the longest game in baseball history, and Cal Ripken Jr. was on the opposing team, and that game lasted for 2 days. And it was like they for the fans who stayed, the team actually gave them season tickets for them waiting it out all that time for being up for 48 hours straight. But yeah, I always knew the common joke in Red Sox land was the Pawtucket Express, which would ship players from the big club back to Pawtucket and vice versa. And the Red Sox certainly have developed a lot of great players over the years in Pawtucket. Obviously, when the Paw Sox moved to Worcester, I think Larry Lucchino, who after he kind of took over the ownership of that club. I think in people who live in Pawtucket's eyes, I think he's kind of their Art Modell in a way. But yeah, he's but yeah, it's a it's I'm glad to see him put it to good use. I mean, it was a legendary ballpark, but like anything, everything kind of evolved. The Yankee, for example, when the Yankees tore down old Yankee Stadium, they kind of turned that area into kind of like a softball, baseball field as well as a little soccer field nearby. So they kind of turned it into kind of an athletic complex there a little bit in the Bronx. So everything has its use. I'm glad to see people's tax dollars are going toward education and not stadiums.
All right, I have to ask George and Trent a really quick question. Are you impressed that Catsy knows this much stuff about this particular topic? George, we'll start off with you. This guy's amazing.
Well,
Boy wonder, kid wonders. Really? Seriously? Really?
He's a walking baseball encyclopedia. Yeah, it's old stuff, man, about Pawtucket. Good job,
George.
Catsy.
I said short answer. You amazed at this kid?
Continue to be amazed. Yeah.
Great stuff, Catsy. All right, Trent, you're
Love
mentoring this kid.
I love Catsy coming out with the the rare facts. Great stuff.
Unbelievable, Catsy. You scored some points with this group and this panel. We're your colleagues and partners anyways, but when you can pull stories out like Cal Ripken and time in the Art
2-day game,
really incredible. All right, well, now we're going to a station break, Candy. I can't keep a straight face anyways. Go on, Can.
You are listening to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. If you see that red subscribe button, hit it, like us, share us with all your friends and family. If you listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Monday nights, we talk baseball. Tuesday nights, we talk football. Wednesday and Thursday nights, you just never know what we're talking about. Although Thursday nights, we do talk a little hockey. But the South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. Talks about his 40-plus years in the business. And the beginning, I can't even think of the name of it. George, you wrote it.
The forward.
There we go.
Forward march.
Forward march. George wrote it. So you got to get your copy today. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there's a link to our merchandise store as well as a plethora of great content. If you want to be a guest on a show or if you have show ideas, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Last but not least, if you want to sponsor a show or you want to advertise, call our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth, at 954-304-4941. Back to the show.
Thank you, Candy. All right, I said this show was filled with a lot of FYIs, and I meant it because I have a picture of this guy on my wall, as well as the next person I'm about to mention as well, and one later in the show. Ty Cobb would have to think about this for a minute, fellas. Ty Cobb would have to resurrect the return to baseball. He'd go over 2,530 for his career batting average to fall below 300. 0 for 2,503. Jesse, is that amazing or what, Trent? Where does it come up with this stuff called research? Ty Cobb.
I mean, listen, first of all, there's most players in this league will never see 2,500 at bats, right? So let alone that this guy would have to go over, which would be a heck of a slump, man. Like, I don't know. Kathy, do that math real quick for me in your head about how many years of at bats. Is that like 0 for 5 years in the league? Because the average 500 at bats a year, it's a massive number, and I think it goes back to the change in the eras and all that. I mean, I'm sure there's probably a big number for Ted Williams too, by the way. But
right,
that's incredible, by the way. I mean 2,500.
I don't think even Chris Davis could even touch that.
Yeah,
right?
Touch that kind of something.
Yeah, but think about it, 2,530 over. I can only imagine this guy would be He would need
Yeah.
Sigmund Freud to help him out on this one. All right, Cassie,
Yeah.
since you went out there and you can continue that's just blows me away, Cassie.
I think that I don't think Chris Davis could even get into a slump that bad, and he had a horrendous one a while back. But Ty Cobb, I mean, he played in an era. He kind of played in the dead ball era, so they weren't homering very much. So it was all about base hits and speed. That's what the game was at the time. It wasn't until Babe Ruth came along that they were hitting balls over the fence left and right. But it's it just shows you just how great. To me, Ty Cobb is the best all-around baseball player of all time. Could literally do it all. And I think if he wanted to, could have been a power hitter. I think it just shows you just how great of a player he was. Say what you will about the man, but man, there is no better all-around player than Ty Cobb.
George, there's a reason why. Well, he doesn't have a number retired, but his name is up there because they didn't hand him out back then. But Ty Cobb just blew. I think he's the greatest Tiger of all time, but I'll say that's my opinion. But what are your thoughts about that?
Well,
unbelievable number, 25-30 for 20.
Al Kaline would like a word.
He's got 90 MLB records. I looked it up. 90 records. Ty Cobb, Triple Crown, batting champion 12 times in the American League. And this guy is just unbelievable. 4,189 hits and a 366 career average. Let's see. I don't think he's going to go that long without getting a hit, but it does illustrate such a great career that Cobb had. And he never wore a number, but the Tigers still honor him. The Tigers still have his name out in the area where the statues are in deep center field at Comerica Park. Of course, he's honored by the team, but he has no number to retire. That being said, he was also a former manager. And of course, as some people will remember, he spent a year or two with Philadelphia after leaving Detroit. But just a great hitter, awesome hitter.
Yep.
Never see that again.
Yeah, doesn't he have a statue sliding into the base too, if I remember right?
Yes.
He slid it. He didn't slide into the base. He slid into people, is what he did. Back when.
We know.
Yeah.
I don't think the statue has spikes up like Ty liked to come in.
No, actually, he would do more than just going spikes up. He would actually go off the ground. He would go off the ground and try and hit you, which you can't do that nowadays.
Yeah.
Although regarding the slump, though, not even if Chris Davis or even Pete Alonso can't touch it, nobody will.
You know what, Cassie? I can't top that. But I'm gonna tell you what. Ryan Pettit has volunteered as our cracks Yankee statistician. He says the Yankees open up as a favorite to make the World Series this season in the odds, but that already has changed. New York has shifted from plus 750 to plus 900 with the news about. Oh, there you go. Right on, Brian. Yeah. Unbelievable stuff, Brian. Keep it up. We love it. And he says to you, Trent, right on that. Great stuff. So, I don't think there's any doubt in my mind. I think Ty Cobb's the greatest player of all time. But a guy that can make a case for it, although I still don't think it's a case, is another FYI. And on March 5th, 1922, Babe Ruth becomes the highest paid player with a 3-year deal worth $52,000 per year. Oh, my goodness. Really? Seriously? Really? All right, Cassie, you're a Yankee guy. $52,000.
I mean, it was a lot of money back then. I mean, money wasn't.
I know that. I'm just saying.
Money wasn't what it is now back then. Obviously Babe Ruth was like. I mean, I hear all this talk about Ohtani, but Ohtani didn't transcend baseball. He's not. Babe Ruth transcended the game. I mean, Ohtani, everybody says Ohtani is like Ruth. No, I don't think so, because Ohtani's not transcending the game. He might be for Japan, but I mean, Babe, which I'd probably argue he's not even transcending it for Japan. Ichiro already did that. Right. But because he's the first Japanese Hall of Famer, so I mean, Ohtani's just kind of just picking up right where he left off in the book. But Babe Ruth made baseball the national pastime. There's a reason he got elected to the Hall of Fame. I think was it the first class?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I know. Ty Cobb got in before him, but he was still part of the first class.
Yeah. Which there's a reason for that, because he truly transcended the game. He made it the national pastime. There were people who didn't even watch baseball who just came to the ballpark to watch him swat this, with the opportunity to see him swat a home run over a fence. Heck, he told a sick kid that he asked him if he wanted to hit a home run. The kid raised his hand and wanted him to hit two. And what did Babe Ruth do? He hit two. Heck, he allegedly called a shot at Wrigley Field. I can't think of anybody who would call their shot nowadays because they're just asking to be thrown at. But again, Babe Ruth, for the money that he was paid back then, truly transcended the game. That's not something that Ohtani can lay claim to. But as a transcending athlete, like as Babe Ruth was at the time, the money spoke for itself.
$52,000 a year back in what, 1922? That's 103 years ago.
Yeah. So let's talk about that real quick, because that $156,000 deal, 3-year deal, would be 2.85 roughly today for a 3-year deal, or $950,000 a year. Would you take Babe Ruth right now for $950,000? Because I think that's a little over the league minimum. It's a crazy number to see what that value is today. Now, obviously, he was the highest paid player at that time. Players worked in the off season. This wasn't the money that it is today. They obviously don't have TV, don't have the commercialized accounts. There's a bunch of things different, but clearly, this guy, by the way, the $52,000 a year, I think the average player was making like $2,500. It was an astronomical, literally 20x what anybody's making. So they were making a huge commitment to this iconic player. Maybe, as Kathy said, maybe once in a lifetime, right? And changing the game, and definitely bringing him into the long ball era, which is probably what he's best known for. But two-way guy, and a lot of people will argue the competition level and all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, well-deserved Babe Ruth, man. If there was anybody that was worth it, it was that guy. So doesn't surprise me that the guy was making 20x what everybody else was.
$52,000 a year, 103 years ago. I still can't believe that. I will say this before I turn to George. You know what Ty Cobb and Babe Ruth have in common in my eyes? I got pictures on their wall, and I got hydrostone statues of them both, and I bought them at Cooperstown. I know memorabilia holds its value, so I think highly regard of both, although I tend to favor Ty Cobb, but Babe Ruth certainly, as Trent would say, nobody. You guys would say you try to pick your spot to go ahead and hit it, they're going to throw it out your head. Okay, George, you have the last word on this topic. And then we're going to bring on Yankees fan Chaz on here. Glad to have you on here. Just got home from practice. We'll be on shortly. Thank you very much for being on here, buddy. We appreciate it. We'll look forward to your comments. So go ahead, George. Chaz get back on.
I don't have too much to add. Everything's been said. He's a phenomenal player, and obviously was deserving of the well-paid stuff. I agree with Eric. Yes, he did change everything. People forget he was a pitcher first, and a pretty good one, before he became an all-star at the plate as far as his hitting. And one thing to remember is neither Ty Cobb nor Babe Ruth, some knucklehead would not put them in on the first ballot. They both had gone into the Hall of Fame, but not at 100%. So I'd like to. Too bad that person isn't still living, and we can have a nice conversation with them, asking them, "What the heck are you thinking? Not giving Ty Cobb and Babe Ruth?" And it's not the same guy, I don't think, but it's just being said that they were phenomenal, both those players. Yes, transformed the game, no question about it. And he'd be quite a steal at today's prices, no question.
Well, let's find out the guy who didn't vote for Ichiro Suzuki belonged to get them all too, but that's another topic for another night.
Yeah.
So sure. I've got another. Did you know? Then we'll get to a couple more topics, because this is one of the most bizarre things I've seen too. And tonight here, as we talk about things during spring training, this is as bizarre as it gets. George and I and Trent probably could relate to this kind of. Okay. Detroit High School in Detroit, Texas. Can you believe that? They're called the Eagles. And I'll say what's interesting about this. I graduated high school from the Lakeland Eagles at that time, Milford, Michigan. But get this, Detroit High School, Detroit, Texas. They use a Philadelphia Eagles logo, and their colors are blue, black, and white. What do you think of that one, George?
That's a good one. Now that's doing some great research, Scott. Detroit Eagles, blue, black, and white, huh? Oh my
And the
goodness.
Philadelphia
I love it.
Eagles.
I
too.
love it. Yeah. I just, there are other Detroits besides mine all over the country. I'm sure different cities, but that's really interesting, that baseball connection. Uh, very good job. Good job.
Think about everybody in Detroit High School, Detroit, Texas. And by the way, there's actually a Dallas, North Carolina. I was actually there many years ago. I lived in the heck of the woods. Called the Eagles from my high school. That's just unbelievable. And yes, the Philadelphia Eagles is popular, and I won't have to get into it. What do you think, Trent, about this?
Had no idea there was a Detroit, Texas, by the way. I have never heard of it. So, I know there's a Paris, Texas, which is always intriguing. I don't think anyone thinks of Paris or Detroit, Texas when those two words are said. Usually, I'm sure they're playing a second, third, maybe 10th fiddle to the big city of Detroit and the city of Paris. So, God bless Detroit, Texas, man. Like, I'm sure there are a crap ton of Eagle logos that are out there in the high school ranks. How many ways can you do an Eagle's head? I'm sure there's a lot of copyright going on. In fact, the Philadelphia Eagles probably copyrighted that eagle from somebody. So there's only so many. So hats off to Detroit High School.
I'm going to actually send this, and tomorrow night I'm going to mention also an Inside the Pigskin of this and see if we can get a little bit of love down in Detroit, Texas, since we got Detroiters on there. We're going to get that out to our people out there. Eric, your thoughts about the surreal thing, and then we'll get on to a couple of other things, including your rant.
I've seen other high schools kind of copy the NFL there, so it's not completely uncommon. I mean, it just there's you can't truly copyright the way they do it because it's been done a zillion times over. So there's really no point in trying to claim it because it's already been done. But I didn't know there was a Detroit, Texas though. That's probably new. I don't even know how many people live there.
And here's the stat I want to know, Motor City. How many towns in this country that begins with D, Dexter, Delaware, any city that you can think of, take that old English D from the Detroit Tigers, because that's a lot.
Well, you know what? I can tell you one college I believe that does is Duquesne, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
How do you like that, Mr. Clark?
Pulled that one right out, like a rabbit out of the hat, Motor City.
Well, you tried to challenge me. Listen,
I did. I want to know the number. I
know, but I'm entitled to pull one out of my bag of tricks. What do you think? I'm competing against Cassie, my 29-year-old guy that's got the encyclopedia of a 129-year-old guy.
I'm 30, Scott.
Oh, are you now 30?
Yeah, I turned 30 in February.
This guy's mature now, man. He's mature.
Got to get the right
30.
age.
Well, I liked it when you were 29. It was easier.
More.
30. That's
Not
right.
anymore, Grandpa.
So the kid is 30. We'll round him up to 30. It doesn't make a difference. You're 30 years old, way smarter than so many people out there. It's ridiculous. Why do you think we got you on this show? Why do you think I give you more light? Wait a minute. I'm talking now. My grandson, or whatever you want to call me. I don't care.
Grandpa.
I want to call her my beard is.
You want to argue? I'm in the mood for an argument, Scott. So we got all night. I'm plenty in the mood to argue.
I don't have all night here. I got too much to do tomorrow. But yeah, don't worry. You have you know how to reach me. But nevertheless, Cassie, seriously, really seriously. I have really seriously and really. I got two hats coming out with both of them. So in case I mess them up, I mess it up. But Cats, unbelievable stuff. But I had to give you an answer back there, because I know Duquesne does. Now, how many of them have Old English? Say, hey, it's not like it's something that's totally copyrighted. You can't use an Old English D. Just depends on who uses it. But I did know about Duquesne. I did know that much.
They probably.
And I can only imagine. So it makes me wonder how many cities from big name cities are duplicated in other states.
There's probably a lot. You'll find a lot, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure. But this one just stood out in my mind. And Texas being a big state.
Can we poll the fans and see if anyone can come up without getting online what city Duquesne actually is in?
Well, you know what? If you're going to do that, darn well that Candy Ebling is going to find it if we don't get an answer.
I want a fan write-in on this one. Come on, man. It's like
okay, well, that's
just outside. It's just outside
of the program.
Outside of Pittsburgh.
Well,
Who said
forget it
that?
now.
It's just outside Pittsburgh.
It's in
Oh,
downtown
get it
Pittsburgh. It's not
invested
out.
up.
It's
Tell
in
it,
downtown, and you're
Well, I
not a
was close.
fan.
Well, I was close.
You're not a fan. It's a write-in from a.
It doesn't matter.
Cats.
He didn't care. It went in one ear and out the other. Never mind, but it was a good idea, Trent. We'll have to come. We'll use it another time. But good old Cassie, my
Spoil our
30-year-old
fun.
that acts like a
Spoiler alert.
130-year-old.
Spoil
But
our
you know what?
fun.
If you're gonna keep doing that, Cassie, I might as well give you time for a rant. And we're gonna,
Yeah.
if your next rant, two other things I want to get to before we close this bad boy out. So now, Eric, rant number 2: the pressure's on the Cubs to make the postseason. Why did you say that?
Well, you decide to take the risk and trade Isaac Paredes, which, okay, his swing wasn't great for Wrigley Field because he was hitting right into the wind off Lake Michigan. You trade a top prospect in Cam Smith, who looks like a stud, and I think I forget who else I forget. I know there was another guy that left, but it escapes me right now. But he's going to be a free agent next year, and odds are Tom Ricketts ain't going to pony up that kind of money. And also you add Ryan Presley, which, who I still think, you put him back into his native closer role. I think he'll be more comfortable than he was as a setup man last year, setting up for Josh Hader. But then you also add a veteran like Justin Turner, who at this point is just chasing rings. But it's going to, you put all that together, you got to make the postseason. The Cubs haven't made it in a full year since 2018. And they haven't made it since the post Bryant, Baez, and Rizzo years. They are running on a slump. The Cub fans are frustrated that they haven't seen October baseball since 2018. I don't count 2020 because that was a shortened 60-game season. I'm sure once the middle of the year set in, that team would have gone down the hill like we expected them to go downhill. Probably almost the same way as they did in 2021 when they had that nasty losing streak that ultimately initiated the fire sale. But the Cubs got to make it this year. You're dealing with a weak NL Central division. The Brewers aren't as strong as they once were. They lost Willy Adames and his 30-plus home runs and 100-plus RBIs. The Reds, I don't know what to make of them. Their pitching staff has a lot of question marks littered all over them. I'm not even sure what they're thinking about on the banks. The Cardinals are rebuilding, and Mark Maraday's Pittsburgh Pirates are the Pittsburgh Pirates as they've always been since old man Bob Nutting has owned the team. But that this is the year where the Cubs can easily get into the postseason. On paper, they're just better. Now, I wouldn't sleep on the Brewers because they have a way of being weird and sneaking up on you and somehow getting into the postseason. I thought their winning window was done after Craig Counsell left, but I was wrong. And Pat Murphy ended up being manager of the year. So, how stupid do I look? But, this is the year where the Cubs can truly do it. They haven't improved. They got Kyle Tucker, who adds some dynamite to that lineup. Their pitching staff is going to be a lot better. And they finally have a closer, which is something they haven't had for a very long time. But they have to make it this year. This is the only year that they're probably going to have Kyle Tucker. His behind is probably going to cash in for probably about $550 million next year in free agency is the way I see it. Probably depending on who signs first, either him or Vlad. But they have to make it. They put the pieces in. If they don't make it, it'll be a typical Chicago Cubs season where they bring all that hope and then it all comes crashing down on the shores of Lake Michigan. But it's, they have to do it this year. Playoffs are bust. They've been mediocre for a while now. They signed Craig Counsell and made him the highest paid manager in not just baseball, but sports. Now think about that for a second. They have to do it. If they fail to do it, number one, up in Milwaukee, I'm going to laugh because, this is the Chicago Cubs aside from 2016 that I've always known. And number two, it'll be a great disappointment. And Jed Hoyer is a lame duck general manager this year. Yes, after this year, he ain't guaranteed a comeback, And so if anybody needs them to do well, it's Jed Hoyer. The Cubs haven't even talked about extension yet. If they go to the playoffs, I see them extending him, even though that will piss off a majority of the fan base who can't stand Jed. But Jed Hoyer needs him to win. Obviously, Craig Counsell's going nowhere. I mean, sure, he's going to hear it from the fans, but if Tom Ricketts going to eat that money, hell no. But this is the year where playoffs are bust. Chicago, your move. It's a weak division, and you got the players to do it. Don't fail now.
All I'm going to say is I don't have an answer for KNC. I'm leaving it to him. This is his rant, and it's hard to. The kids totally on pressure's on Counsell, but I'm leaving it at that. I'll save my voice when I need it. This kid did my speaking for me. All right, Trent, George, anything you want to add to it real quickly?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the Cubbies are, positioned. Counsell's got some serious pressure because his former team did go to the playoffs and he's, sat at home. So, unfortunately, minus the sophomore jinx for, coach up in Milwaukee. They're probably, Pat Murphy's probably positioned pretty well to win another division and get in there. So, the division is down. And I think the Cubs got their chance. I think the Cubs ballpark is an offensive ballpark, man. I mean, the wind does not blow in from the lake, by the way. That's not how the wind blows west to east towards the lake. So all the wind comes in from the west, as we saw from the famous ball coming back into the field. Once it goes up, the wind pushes it back onto the field from left to right. So, but it's a tough place for a righty. You see the balls. Obviously, we've seen a lot of balls hit on the streets in Wrigley Field. So, but I think there's a ton of pressure on the brass, the Hoyers, Counsell. I mean, I think those guys got a burden, man, and especially because their competition doesn't look strong. This division's a bit down, more so than usual. Yeah. I mean, the Cardinals are always so formidable, and they're not right now. I mean, there's just a lot of things that open this thing up. If they can't get it done, it's going to be a double slap in the face. They should get it done even in a good division, and now that they're down, it should be a no-doubter. If they don't get this, there's going to be anarchy in the streets in Chicago.
As far as I'm concerned, great stuff, Eric. And then I'll turn it over to George. Then we have a question in the chat room we have to get to. Go ahead, Eric.
Well, number one, if you look at ballpark factor, which kind of does these are the people who actually know how exactly, they got all these mathematical formulas that they use to track whether a ballpark is a hitter friendly or pitcher friendly ballpark. And I assure you that Wrigley Field is a very pitcher friendly ballpark. It gets cold in Wrigley. I've been there. Yeah. It gets cold, and that is not good for offense. You saw what happened to Isaac Paredes, who was an all-star in the first half of that year when he came over to Chicago. He became just one of the poorest hitters in baseball after moving over to Wrigley Field. Now in Houston, do I think he can bounce back? Yes, especially with the Crawford boxes right there, where that's perfect for his swing. But they are. But for what it's worth with the Cubs, Craig Counsell is not under any pressure from the brass, maybe from the fans. I mean, the fans are going to be the fans. That's what they do. And as far as anarchy goes, there's always been anarchy, even before they won the World Series in 2016, where they sent Steve Bartman into hiding, where he practically had to join the witness protection program.
Great 30 for 30, by the way. Great 30 for 30.
Yeah. But it's but as far as that goes, Craig Counsell is not under any serious pressure. The Cubs were mediocre last year. However, that's on the Cubs. They were mediocre under. Actually, they were actually a little better under David Ross and damn near made the playoffs, but then did their usual September fall apart, and they didn't go to the postseason. But Craig Counsell is not under any real pressure. They have him signed for all that money. He's not going anywhere. Now, if he maybe in like the third to last or second to last year of the contract, probably the second to last. Will he be facing some pressure? Absolutely, if he doesn't have success. But no, he's going to be around a while. So he has nothing to worry about at the moment. But Jed Hoyer, though, man, I'd be worried if I was him, man, because you've had quite a few years to rebuild this thing, and nothing's happened.
You know what I'd love to see? I'd love to see the stats of what they considered the Cubs as an offensive ballpark when they were only day games, right? When they always played at 1:00. As opposed to when they lights came to Wrigley, and now you go into the cold air of Chicago, especially, man, April, May, September. That's rough action. And but the day games, different deal.
I think well with Wrigley Field though, I mean, yeah, nighttime, it's obviously obviously, the ball ain't going to travel at night, especially even in ballparks where it's notoriously, where you can, aside from maybe Colorado, a lot of and maybe Cincinnati, you're not going to see too many fly balls leaving the ballpark, but even during the day at Wrigley Field, man, the wind still blows and it's still cold. Coming from a guy who spent over 20 plus years in the Chicago area, I know, and there's no getting used to it either because it's absolutely brutal. But as far as Wrigley goes, that's during the day, man. Even especially early in the year, that ball ain't flying. And that's why we saw Isaac Paredes go from an all-star to a guy who can't even hit the back of a barn.
Okay, well, George Eichhorn has been patiently waiting. Thanks, George. I appreciate it. I know he was absorbing every second of all this. So, are the Cubs under pressure, George?
Yeah, they are. They always are. So are the New York teams and the LA teams. They have big media markets. Philadelphia is another one. Cubs haven't done anything. They won one World Championship, and then it's been all blanks. This guy, Tucker, my key is Tucker. Okay, listen to these stats. 30 home runs, 29 and 23 in his last 4 seasons with the Houston Astros. Kevin Tucker is going to be a big key to that success this year. I agree that the division is not as strong as it used to be. They've got the best loyal fans. I mean, I put them right up there with the Boston and the St. Louis fans. Those are my top 3 fans in the United States for baseball. But it's not going to be easy. But they've got a lot of pressure on them. I do agree. I think this is a year that they should really do it. Like I said, it's a great city and great fans. Yes, it's windy. Yes, it's chilly. But we saw that in Detroit too at Tiger Stadium. Sometimes maybe not as cold as in at Wrigley Field. But yeah, they're overdue to get another victory and another division title and make the postseason again.
The only thing I'm going to add to this, and I want to get to the chat room, is you've got Theo Epstein and Joe Madden. Theo Epstein's headed to the Hall of Fame. Joe Madden, I don't think will be too far behind if he gets in as a manager. And I'll leave it at that. Let's go to the chat room. Yankees Jazz. Great question. Now, how can the Yankees bounce back after Gill and Cole's injuries? I'll let one or two people mention it briefly. Eric, you can answer that question. I want to get to the rest of the chat room. 2 more topics to get to.
Well, Heel isn't gone forever. He's probably going to be gone for most of the first half of the year, but you'll have him for the second half, so not the end of the world there. And as far as Cole goes, you have Max Fried. He was an ace in Atlanta. You're paying him $218 million. Chop, chop, buddy. You're going to earn your money this year. Carlos Rodon, if he trusts his off-speed pitches more, I think he can be a much more effective pitcher than he was last year, even though last year he was kind of average. Well, it beat the year before where he was just an absolute train wreck. And then Clark Schmidt, build off your success. Prior to him getting hurt, he was having a breakout year. And then don't forget Will Warren. I am high on this guy. I'm talking high. He has looked incredible in spring training. He looks a lot better. I think he's truly ready this year, unlike last year where the Yankees brought him up too early and he got shellacked all over the yard where he had some pretty ugly starts, even though like he was a young rookie. I think this year he can finally put it together. And yeah, the Yankees got the guys. It's just a matter of put it together. This rotation can survive the year. Is it going to be as great as we all projected them to be? No. But the Yankees, I think, to me, are still a playoff team. Will they win the World Series? I don't know, because we all know how that goes. Everything has to break, right? Injuries and things like that, as well as getting hot at the right time. Trent would know this from his 2002 World Series experience with the Anaheim Angels. But gotta, at the end of the day, though, regardless of what the prognosticators say, the players ultimately have the final say on what happens on the field.
Okay, that's fair enough. All right, let's go back to the chat room. Cyberowski, what's going on? Well, you are. Thanks a lot for being here. Ryan Pettit, go Cubs. Definitely a Cubs fan. He wants the Cubs to make the playoff. Orlando S. Rubano, very loyal to us. Thank you very much. One of every 100 or so years there for a reason. I like that. That's a good comment. Too bad they sold the buildings with the bleachers at Wrigley Field and now building condos there.
That was a big mess when that happened.
That sure was. Well, thanks, Orlando, for being on the show. Much appreciated. Going to mention on this day, we'll have one more topic to go. On this day in 1963, can you believe this? Pete Rose plays in his first spring training game for the Cincinnati Reds. On this day, Pete Rose, we talked about him belonging in the Hall of Fame. Now, a week later, after we talk about him being in there, on this day, he plays in his first spring training game for the Reds. Unbelievable stuff. Final topic of the night. Former MLB star, a pro pickleball. Get this career. You thought what I had was interesting before. After 14 seasons in MLB, JD Martinez has aspirations of making it as a pro pickleball player after signing with Jula. The 37-year-old hopes to compete in tournaments in 2025. This source, by the way, comes from the Pickleball Clinic, a World Series winner and a 6-time All-Star. So get that. What do you think of that one? JD Martinez and pickleball? Eric?
Yeah, I mean, he's got a hell of a bat speed to do it. I'm sure when he hits that little ball around, it's gonna smack the ground like a bullet. But I mean, good for him for finding his late life late life activity after he's done playing. I mean, he certainly could do it, though. I mean, we saw him throughout his career, actually post Houston, after he left Houston, and then eventually became a late bloomer and just was smacking balls left and right for the Red Sox as well as the Diamondbacks and the Tigers. This guy can, I could see it. I think he'd actually be good at it. I mean, pickleball is kind of like becoming like the new phenomenon, another lifelong sport we can all appreciate for those of us who can move around a little more nimbly. We can, for those of us who are not happy chasing a golf ball around or want to avoid getting hit by a tennis ball in the head, we have ourselves a little activity, and I like to call it live ping pong.
Unreal. Let's go into the chat room. Pete Rose Underground. Let's put him in already. No, great minds think alike there. Yankees, Jazz. Who's your biggest underdog team going into 2025? I wouldn't even begin to venture a guess on that one right now. Just leave it. Who?
Too early and too open for that question.
Yeah, but that's okay. Yankees, Jazz, bring it up again. We'll see what we have. This is a good one. I want to see Pete Sampras for Andre Agassi try pickleball. I'd watch it. Join the club. George Boubar Isner plays pickleball. Agassi does too. There you go.
Yep. Agassi's a big pickleballer, and I think I'm going to announce my pro pickleball career. I'm going to hit the senior tour now that I hit 55 this year. I think JD Martinez. Here's my prediction: JD Martinez. Love that he's going to do this. I think it's great. It's great for the pickleball sport. I love that Agassi's involved, and I love that a lot of people are getting involved. I think Tom Brady owns a pickleball franchise, a pro franchise. So I think a lot of people are getting into it. KD owns a pro pickleball franchise, I believe. Right. And so athletes are really coming on this. I'll tell you, I think JD is going to find it very, very hard to compete out there. What will happen, prediction, and I know my man George is a JD Martinez fan. All right. So I'm going to predict this one for you, George. JD's going to go out for 2 years and he's going to get in the best shape of his life. And he's going to come back to Detroit as a 40-year-old, and he's going to be hitting the snot out of the ball as a DH in the best shape of his life and realize baseball is way easier than pickleball. And he's going to make his millions again.
Well, wishful thinking, and Tigers have made no effort to re-sign him in the last few years. I think it's great for him, though. That sport has really taken off. And I always admire him, obviously, as a big league ball player. So it's kind of cool that he's going to eye that career. I wish he was coming back to the Tigers, but I don't see it happening. But good thought there, Mr. Trent. I appreciate it. I'm looking at the pictures. He's already got photos out there. That was pickleball career. I tell you what, I would never underestimate the desire of this man. He came from nowhere. He was left for nothing by the Houston Astros before the Tigers signed him. And then, as we know, the brilliant careers he's had. It's just been a great ride for JD. I'll never underestimate him and the excitement that he has. But pickleball, yeah, let it roll, man. Let it roll.
The only thing I'm going to add to this, and then I want to get to Yankees Jazz comment on this. So keep it up. Candy, we want to address that. Athletes are competitors, and after their careers are over, they're going to find a way to being competitors.
Very
Yeah.
true.
Katie Martinez
they
to
will.
me fits in that. Okay, so you guys can address this one. Christopher Sanchez saying he's healthy. Can he be a Cy Young candidate? Quickly.
This is from our young Yankee. So, Katsy, tell your young Yankee fan. I love little Yankee ones, Jazz 13. I love this kid.
Yeah,
What do
he's
you
great.
think of that, Katsy? Is a guy like Christopher Sanchez, is he that kind of talent that he could actually be a Cy Young competitor, like a real Cy Young prospect?
Yeah, he was blown. Yeah, absolutely. He was blowing it past him, especially before he got hurt. He was blowing it past him last year. It was a terrific terrific starter on that team. I mean, had had Zach Wheeler not been there, I could guarantee you he would have been up top that rotation. But he makes that, he makes that Philadelphia rotation tough. I'm telling you, there's a reason that they go to the postseason. They've gone to the postseason every year the last few years. But I can promise you that Christopher Sanchez is a big part of that equation. If he stays healthy, I promise you he will be a part of that Cy Young conversation.
Woo! I heard that, Motor City. Early watch on the Cy Young watch for Chris Sanchez. He just arrived, just like that.
There you go.
I love it. I love it.
I hope that answers your question. Orlando Escribano, let's put that comment up. Hurts my heart. The local parks are changing. Basketball courts, pickleball. Unfortunately, my friend, that just seems to be the way things are going. What can
It's
I
usually
say?
tennis courts. It's not that often it's basketball. It's usually tennis courts.
I guess maybe in his neck of the woods it probably is, but
Yeah.
I can see. Depends on what part of the country you're from.
It's a popular sport. It's a really popular,
Booming.
explosive, growing sport nowadays. So you're gonna see. Personally, I'd rather go in there and hit a ball around rather get elbowed in the nose on a basketball court.
Well, I'm too old. I'm too old. I have too many injuries. There's no way you're going to find me doing that stuff.
I think they're adding 4 million new players a year in the U.S.
Are they really? Okay.
I'm planning on joining a league.
I read that stat somewhere.
I'm planning on joining a league this summer.
It's awesome.
There you go.
You're way better than I am, brother. I'll do the play-by-play, and you want to go out there and do it, more power to you. But I'm not getting on that court. My wife has enough difficulties already taking me from one doctor appointment to another, where she has to rearrange her schedule all week long to try to keep up with my doctor's appointments. So I'll do the play-by-play. You're much better shape, more power to you. And when I get busted up, I'll contact my buddy Kevin Rand to check me out to see if I'm physically able to do anything. Shout out to my buddy Kevin, who I'll be definitely going out there and reaching out to soon. All right, now Orlando, now you're speaking my language. My sport is margaritas on the beach in the summer. There you go. If you're in Florida or you go down to the Keys, I'll bet those margaritas will be worth an awful lot more money down there. Margaritas are good. My favorite one's actually a strawberry margarita. So you're taking my language, Orlando. So I'm going to speak everybody else's language. We're going to let everybody know how they get a hold of themselves after Candy Ebling delivers one more station break.
You are listening to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. If you see that red subscribe button, hit it, like us, share us with all your friends and family. Anybody you think that might enjoy all our great conversations, whether we're talking about Babe Ruth or who knows what. Listen, share us, like us. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Monday nights, we talk baseball. Tuesday nights, we talk football. Wednesday and Thursday nights, you just never know what's on the docket, so tune in to find out. The South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book. It's called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by your host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth, and the foreword was written by none other than George Eichhorn. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. Get your copy today. There is also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where you can find a link to a merchandise store and a plethora of great content, so go check it out. If you want to advertise or sponsor a show, call Scott 954-304-4941. And if you want to be a guest or have a show idea or a topic idea, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Back to you, Scott.
All right. Thank you, Candy. And thank you, Yankee Jazz. You're like Tony the Tiger when he talks about his Frosted Flakes. You're great, brother. Looking forward to seeing you next Monday night. Hey, that's one of my favorite cereals. I got to give Tony some love. I don't
I'm a
eat it
Battle
as
Creek
much.
native. I appreciate that, Motor City.
Oh, yeah, there you go, man. Battle, are you really? Never
Yeah.
go to this? You ever go to that cereal plant?
Heck yeah. Yeah. I've done the tour, man.
Have you really? What's it like? They give you a lot of
Oh,
free
no.
cereal?
Yeah, you get a free box of cereal, you get some Pop-Tarts, man. It's no joke, bro.
Oh, my
I might,
gosh.
I might
I've been
just go
there
there just
too.
for the
I was
cereal.
there a
Candy,
long
when we're
time
out
ago.
there, Candy, when we're out there, we'll do Battle Creek. We'll have to get in there. By then, I better be under 200 pounds before I go there. Nothing, but George can tell you right now, anytime you go to the Coca-Cola factory in Atlanta, you'll definitely not go thirsty. So with that
Yep.
said, I've been there, I've taken that tour too. So, all right, let's go around the horn here. Eric, let everybody know how to get a hold of you. Great show tonight. Great commentary by all my people here. And I'll tell you a lot of stuff to cover. And we did it in a fairly timely manner. As usual, Eric, if there's a show that nobody learns anything on, then it's too bad because you bring a lot of knowledge over crowd. Excuse me, but we know they do. And we're very thankful for the audience that we have here on the 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. So with that said, Eric, let everybody know how to get a hold of you.
You can follow me on my Twitter at SportsTeamNews, or you can find me on my blog at bellyupsports.com, where I write all things baseball. And you think I hate your team? Yes, I do.
You should get a trademark on that. That's all I can say.
All right.
Trent.
You got to trademark that. I'm Trent
Yeah,
Clark.
I hear it every week. You almost have to trademark that one, Eric.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure you'll go out there and trademark it while I'm still alive. It takes about a couple of years to get things trademarked once you go through all the red tape. Go ahead, Trent.
I am Trent Clark, serial entrepreneur. I am a member of the Entrepreneur Organization, author of Leading Winning Teams, host of the Winners Find a Way podcast. You can buy my book, Leading Winning Teams. There you go. It's up there. Most people know me because I coached in 3 World Series. And you can find me at Trent@leadershipity.com, leadershipity.com, Trent@leadershipity.com. All the social media, Trent M. Clark or Leadershipity. Probably most active on LinkedIn. Check me out there. And if you think, hey, I hate Katsy's team, you're right.
That's good. Well, what that's part about this show has got 3 authors on it, and I wouldn't be surprised if Eric, with all his incredible writing, becomes the 4th one on this team. If there's an author in waiting, it's Eric Katz. All right. With that said, I'll transition over to George Joycorn, who wrote the foreword of my book. Go ahead. Let's talk about yours.
Well, I write for the South Florida Tribune, the Motor City Tribune, all kinds of tribunes here. There's a link at the end of my stories to the book right there, Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air, chronicling 70 plus years of broadcasting, probably 80 now, in the Detroit and Michigan vicinity. And you can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com and on LinkedIn at my name, and also on Twitter, X, SNG Sports, San G Sports 99. Looking forward to great shows ahead. Thanks for having me.
All things George Blaha. That's what I want. All things George Blaha.
Well, I helped George Blaha get that Hall of Fame. Don't kid yourself. I've been working for 4 years in the background, and he finally is getting the Kurt Gowdy Award. I'm very proud of all the efforts put forward by the Pistons, the NBA, and, of course, his local followers here. But, yeah, George Blaha is a great guy. 49 years, Detroit Pistons basketball.
That's all right, Trent. You just
Sparty too, man. He's a Sparty too.
I know,
George.
I know. Over 45 years with the Spartans too, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, I've known George a long time too, but now you just gave George Eichhorn a homework assignment. Next time he sees George, he's going to go out there and invite him on the Motor City Mad Mouth show. And I'll actually have a 3rd person on it. It'll be you and I and George. All right, George.
There you go.
From one George to another. I didn't know that Strohs had relocated to Milwaukee, but I can tell you one thing: from one George to another, bring him on the Motor City Mad Mouth. So, what you'll learn on this show. So with that said, that does do it this time for 108 Stitches Baseball Talks. On behalf of my producer, Candy Evelyn, Eric Katz, George Eichhorn, and Trent Clark, I want to thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next Monday night at 8 o'clock. Have a great week. Enjoy the spring training. And we'll see you next Monday. Have a great weekend. And we have some great programming tomorrow. And it'll be inside the pigskin at approximately around 8:15 tomorrow night. So I hope you can join us. Good night, everybody.
Good night.